evening and welcome to Coffee with a Kick. We're here with a purpose. Today is the first major midweek EPL prediction episode. We've had a couple here and there that have gone on, but this is the first one where we're getting the full slate, the full 10 matches all happening scattered across Tuesday, mostly Wednesday, and then a couple on Thursday, which is quite late in the cycle to be playing a match, especially when the next week, half of those teams will be playing in Europe with some Champions League. Importantly, some important matches for those teams. Wait, no, Tottenham isn't in the Champions League, just Newcastle. Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. First, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe down there on the bottom of that video. Ring that bell, and we will keep bringing you this fulsome, wholesome content about the Premier League action you're all craving. What is happening with this pitch? I don't know. It's pretty... Sounds good. Whatever. Anyways,
here's the Taco Bell ad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Spicy Doritos Locos Tacos. That's a thing. It is a thing. With Cinnabon Delights. I do like those.
Ooh.
Call me crazy.
An unpopular opinion.
Unpopular? I hope not. I think Cinnabon Delights are pretty. If you get them fresh. I had a much too old Cinnabon Delight recently. It was dry, and that is not a pleasant experience. I mean, it was still fine, but it wasn't the typical experience that you would like out of that. Regardless of the status of your current batch of Cinnabon Delights from Taco Bell, we will press forward, nonetheless, to Tuesday, December 5th, with my Wolves, with a not terrible result in the background. We'll get to that tomorrow. But we will be taking on Burnley at the Molineux. Burnley coming off a surprising result there. Boy, I don't know. I felt a lot more confident about this match prior to this weekend, obviously. But I don't think, personally, I don't think Burnley can pull it off twice in a row. I don't trust them to do it twice in a row. However, I'm also still not that confident in my Wolves.
Ooh.
What do you think? 2-1? I think that's fair. 2-1 Wolves. I think that's a fair result. We're still, we're getting into the swing of things. Looking to bounce back. We need to play up to our potential against a side that typically doesn't elicit it from us. We usually, like you've said before, we typically modulate our ability levels for some reason to the competition that we are encountering at the moment. But hopefully we can keep it a little above the relegation-bound Burnley.
Yeah, Burnley came out with some intent on the weekend, so I think they'll be feeling good about themselves. I don't think that they have the stuff to beat Wolverhampton. I also have it 2-1. I think it'll be 1-1 for a little bit. I think Wolverhampton takes it 70, 80th minute range, and Burnley though. If they play like they did against Sheffield United, if they play like that, I think they have a shot to actually potentially stay up, especially with the Everton.
Yeah, with the Everton and their form, they might just sneak away. One of these teams, it looks like one of these three teams that we were like for sure these are the three relegation teams. With that Everton minus 10, one of these teams is going to sneak out of this. I think I'm starting to feel it more. And Burnley's currently the one. Although if they keep dropping like this, like, oh, Sheffield, that looks all right. Maybe they can sneak out, and then they get demolished. Lutontown's like, I don't know, they're kind of frisky a little bit, but then they don't. They get decent results, but not great. Anyway, I'm hoping that we get full points because it is Burnley, and Burnley's not very good. But we will see. That is the 2:30 kickoff Eastern time, obviously. Yeah. For my Wolves on Tuesday, and then the 3:15, so it's just slightly staggered. It's staggered by half. Staggered by a half at 3:15. Luton Town and Arsenal. This one will... and you always say that. I think that Arsenal will handle this match easily, but Arsenal, aside from poor Lens, typically doesn't strike a large tally. 3-0, 3-1... I'm on the fence a little bit about it. I think Luton's had a little bit better attack in recent weeks than they've had in the past. I'll give them a 3-1 at Kenilworth Road against the home
I'm giving
side.
Luton Town 3-1 as well, but they're going to get the win.
Oh my goodness!
Luton Town with the win, 3-1. I think Arsenal gets punched in the face. Luton scores 2 within 10 minutes, and then they're just scrambling. Again, I've said it before. Arsenal don't have the mentality. They didn't have it last year, didn't have it the year before, and they don't have it this year either. So I think Luton wins 3-1. It's going to be a gut punch.
Definitely.
And it's going to be a dark winter for Arsenal.
Ominous. My word.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet Moses, as I might say. I don't know if I've said this on the pod before. I don't know if I've. That's actually a common portion of my vernacular. Anyways, we'll move on to Wednesday, where we've got just quite a gaggle at 2:30. Brighton Hove Albion, hosts Brentford at the Amex, which is always formidable, or typically formidable, I should say. Crystal Palace and Bournemouth, and then Fulham and Nottingham Forest, Sheffield United and Liverpool. We'll start off at the top of the list with Brighton Hove Albion hosting Brentford. How do you think this one will shake out?
You know, both teams have not been amazing the past bit. It honestly depends. Obviously, Brentford beat Luton on the weekend. Brighton had an entire half with Chelsea at 10 men and couldn't get it done. So I have it 2-2. Neither team strikes me as like tipping the other one, so I think 2-2. Goals will be scored, but
it's Brighton. Goals will be scored. Once again, still have not gone a match without both conceding and getting a goal. So, yeah, I think I took 4.5 goals for Brighton on the weekend, and they hit it with ease.
You got it.
I think I missed another portion of that parlay, but that's, this is not a gambling podcast. With how much I talk about it, might end up being
coffee with a kick at night.
It's coffee with a kick. Yes, it is coffee with a kick at night. You're drinking coffee at night. You're fine. Listen. It's finals week for some people, so I get it.
None of our listeners, but it's finals week for some people.
It's finals week for some people. Anyway, yeah, I think, boy, it's one of those things where if Brentford gets an early goal, Brighton has the tendency to not respond very well, even if they're at home. That 3-1 loss to West Ham earlier this year just sticks in my mind for whatever reason. Mainly because West Ham isn't great. Brighton's fallen off a bit. I think they need this one. Especially after their weekend performance. I think they're going to fall back to the classic 3-1 Brighton.
Wow.
That's the classic scoreline from earlier this season. And I think that it comes back to trying to get back to even keel, back to where you were at the beginning. Might not start off with a nice 3-1 scoreline against Brentford. Ooh. Sad for Brentford because, again, they were promising earlier in the season. But things sort themselves out in the end, To Selhurst Park in London, Crystal Palace hosts Bournemouth. Again, like Crystal Palace, I don't know what to do with you. Bournemouth's not very good, but do I trust Crystal Palace to win? I don't think so. I think this goes 2-2.
I have a 3-1. Crystal Palace with the victory. At Selhurst Park, I think they get it done.
Get a little bit of boost.
I think Bournemouth has the ability to score goals, as we saw against Aston Villa, but I don't think they can sustain that over a 3-game stretch. So 3-1, Crystal Palace win.
It'll be nice to see because, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth is not great. So it's a very easy result to see. Speaking of one this is the one that's actually on television. Fulham versus Nottingham Forest. I mean, I don't know what to do with this one.
14v15 action.
Yeah, I was going to say bottom half of the middle of the table. The fringe, they're not bad enough to be relegated, but they're not good enough to, do much. I'm going to let you go first so I can think about how I want this to happen.
I think Fulham didn't play terrible on the weekend. I mean, they almost beat Liverpool until they crumbled. Like we said, listen to the episode tomorrow. But I think Fulham pulls it off. I think they end up winning 3-2. Nottingham losing to Everton when they were at home, that's a tough loss. I think psychologically they're not going to recover, and I think 3-2 Fulham win.
And see, I mean, that would be their third game in a row with 3 goals. Apparently, they figured something out during the international break. Don't know how that happened, but boy, I almost had a decision there. I think that Nottingham needs something going on. They've lost 3 straight here. But I don't trust either of these sets. I think this is a 1-1. I think this is a 1-1 midweek. They don't look fresh draw. I think that's what happens here. I don't think Fulham can keep it rolling for forever. They're going to come back to earth at some point offensively. Nottingham Forest, I don't think they have the gusto. I think they're going to feel defeated. I think they're going to start feeling safe, Nottingham Forest. Like, listen, we're not going to get relegated. We were in the mix last year. This year, we feel much safer. They're going to start feeling a little bit complacent. And,
yeah.
And
I think Fulham runs the table. I think they win out.
Fulham runs
the table. 3 or more every game. They take the Premier League.
Take it. Just
Lock
take
it
it.
in.
Lock it in. Fulham ends up 3 goals for the rest of the season in each match. You can take it to the bank. I think this goes 1. Oh, I wrote those backwards. Let me do a little bit of arrow action here, so that I know that we took opposites there. I did 1-1. You did 3-2 for Fulham. And then to this one, I think could definitely get nasty. Sheffield United hosts Liverpool at Bramall Lane. Do you think that that Egyptian king gets anything gets anything past the keeper in this one?
I think, just like the Israelites broke out of Egypt, and went on their own and made a statement. Sheffield United makes a statement, and they win 2-1.
Wow, bold.
They win 2-1. I'm feeling like some upsets are going to come midweek. Teams aren't going to be as fresh.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to play because some of these teams have Champions League the next week. Mm-hmm. They still have weekend games. So I think Sheffield, after losing 5-0 to Burnley, take one 2-1.
Wow. I could see it. You start off with a B squad, try to put on some guys in like the 60th minute, maybe in halftime to right the ship. If you're Liverpool, when Sheffield caught you unawares, I certainly think it could happen. Well, I certainly think it could happen. I keep writing these backwards. You said 2-1. I didn't say 2-1. I think this is going to be a 4-0 victory for Liverpool. I think that Sheffield United feels demoralized. They feel like they should. 5-0 to Everton. It's 5-0 to Burnley. Burnley hadn't scored 5 goals in their past. I don't know. They've only scored 3 in their last, in the 4 previous. So giving up 5 is not great.
I think Burnley's running the table.
You think Burnley's going to run the table too? You didn't even pick them to win this one. I think you're yanking my chain on that one.
Burnley playoff 39th week to see who wins the Premier League. Lock it in.
Wow. That would be something. Listen, if you take that future, I know this isn't a gambling podcast, but if you take that future and it hits, that's a lot. Okay? I don't even know if they'll let you take it. But I think that Liverpool comes out fine. I just don't think Sheffield United's very good. Then to Aston Villa hosting Man City at Villa Park in Birmingham. Good old Birmingham. I'll take this one first. I think City needs another bounce back here. I don't know. They may not. Villa's known to sneeze at. I mean, their most recent result is not great, obviously. 2-2 draw to Bournemouth. But City, you guys have drawn your last 3. Not great. You need to get some points on the board. I think this was an exciting affair for a midweek. I think this is 3-2 for City. But I think they do get out of it. I think it's a late goal. I think it's a late goal that puts them over the top. Maybe even they're down 2-1 going into the 70th minute onward and get 2 at the very end there with maybe a late sub in for, he likes to bring on, depending on who he's starting, you could bring on Doku there. He's been a good sub in some of the Champions League matches when he hadn't started. You could bring on Alvarez sometimes, and he's a good spark in the middle. So I think that City could see something like that happen if they're trying to chase the game, and it typically works for them in the end.
Yeah, this one scares me a little bit.
Definitely.
But I do think, considering we hit the post about 500 times on the weekend, I think we get back to our winning ways. Aston Villa feels a lot like Arsenal did 2 years ago, where they're really good offensively, defensively shaky. I think City wins 4-1.
Okay. Much more comfortable.
I think that we get it done. Obviously Aston Villa can score, but I think it'll be fine. I think we'll get back to winning ways. Never has Pep Guardiola dropped points in 4 straight. I think 3 straight he would never drop points. Since his first season, he's never dropped points in 4 straight. So hoping that does not happen.
Yeah.
Because if so, the title race will start to slip a little bit.
Also, Pep on the hot seat. Yeah, I'm sure. If your results hold, then I think City will be back up on the top, right? Yeah, you'd be back top of the table at that point.
Has nothing to do with my predictions.
Nothing to do with the predictions at all. And then one that would look tantalizing to somebody like 10 years ago, Manchester United and Chelsea. They're at Old Trafford, simultaneous with the Villa City match. Boy, I'll let you start this one because I don't got a good feel for it. I don't got a good feel for this one because you never know with these guys. Sometimes Chelsea comes in, looks like they've got it figured out. Sometimes Chelsea comes in and they look like a bunch of young bucks out there because they are. And then United, I don't know what you guys are doing.
Chelsea, they've been shocking me recently because they seem to have figured out something offensively where it's not just one guy scoring, but I think they've had 7 guys score in the last 3 games. I think I saw a stat after this weekend. So I think they get it done 2-1. Man U, like we've said in the past 6 weeks, just doesn't look convincing.
No.
They don't look like they can really do much offensively. Defensively, they're barely hanging on. They lost 1-0 to Newcastle on the weekend. So I think they lose again, 2-1.
Yeah, that's where I landed as well. I think that United goes up early and then gives up one early in the second, and they start to they do this thing where they start coasting on a draw, we're fine with the draw, whatever, and then that they ends up they get punched in the face, and they're like, we can't, we're done. And it just ends up being I agree, a 2-1 victory for Chelsea, which is big for them. It gets
Yeah,
I think it won't quite flip their positions, but it definitely will put Chelsea back into it. Chelsea, they're in 10th place, but have a positive goal difference on only 19 points. So, figure that out. All right, and then that finishes up Wednesday. We move to Thursday with Everton and Newcastle up there at Goodison Park in Liverpool, 2:30. This one, I think Newcastle has kind of gotten into their groove a bit defensively. They're conceding much currently, and I think that Everton, although they got the result there this weekend against Nottingham Forest, haven't been the most convincing offensively. I think that Newcastle comes in, wins this 2-0. I think it's a pretty tidy job that they do. Kind of keeps the momentum rolling. And this could also go a different way. This could also be a rest game because they need a win next week in the midweek next week for Champions League action. Mm-hmm. So this could also go that way. I think they're going to try to get some points here, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, with Newcastle, I'm not sure I know who they're going to rest because they apparently have had they've had guys on the injury report.
Double-digit guys out for multiple weeks now. So it's impressive that they've done as well as they have.
Yeah. So I think that it ends up being 1-1. I think Everton wants to play. They played pretty well on the weekend. I think they'll play defensively well at home. Newcastle been playing better defensively, less so on offense. A couple of 1-0 victories here and there. So I think 1-1 feels pretty good with me.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah, especially if they rest anybody because of the Champions League the following weekend or midweek. It could definitely slip to being a 1-1 draw. And then at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in good old London town. Don't know why I call it that all the time. The Spurs host West Ham. And obviously West Ham wins this one, right? No, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not crazy. I'm not going to pick West Ham to win. I'm going to pick them to draw 3-3. Why not? They're as good as they felt about the City 3-3 draw. They're gonna feel just as bad about this 3-3 draw to West Ham.
See, this one I just don't know how to place because West Ham 7 points out of their last 9. Tottenham 1 point. Tottenham needs a win. West Ham seems to be figuring something out. I have a 2-2 draw. I think it'll also be a draw. Kind of a game where Tottenham really doesn't love to be in a ton of possession, but they're going to have to be because West Ham definitely doesn't want it.
Right.
And West Ham loves to counter, and Tottenham's not very good on the counter. So, yeah, I think 2-2 is going to be a good one. And, yeah, you're right. Tottenham will feel pretty bad.
Yeah.
Especially at home.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you know what? That brings us to the end of the midweek action. I'm excited because there are some interesting matchups. Not big name matchups per se. I mean, technically the Aston Villa Man City one's a pretty important match, but you wouldn't have expected it coming into the season.
Top 4.
That is the one to look forward to. If you're gonna watch one of these, I'd watch that one for sure. Aside from watching my Wolves beat Burnley, that's another one that you want to watch. But until we get to that Tuesday time, why don't you go ahead and grab your coffee, study your finals, then watch your soccer, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Annyeong.